Did you know that Scotland has more than 790 islands, but only 130 are inhabited? Welcome to a land full of mysteries, traditions, and unique laws. Nestled in the northernmost part of the United Kingdom, Scotland is a country drenched in history and culture, where ancient castles coexist with vibrant modern cities. From the rolling green hills of the Highlands to the bustling urban sprawl of Edinburgh and Glasgow, Scotland offers a diverse landscape that is as varied as its people. The history of Scotland is as rich and complex as its terrain. It's a tale told through the centuries-old stone of castles and ruins, the art and literature of its people, and the traditions that have been passed down through generations. This is a country where the past is always present and where every corner has a story to tell. But Scotland is not just about the past. It's a country that's constantly evolving, blending the traditional with the cutting edge. It's a place where you can find world-class universities and innovative industries sitting side by side with ancient traditions and folklore. When you think of Scotland, you might first think of the distinctive Scottish accent. It's an accent that's been immortalized in films, music, and literature, and one that's instantly recognizable around the world. But did you know that there are actually several different Scottish accents, each with its own unique charm and character? And of course, we can't forget about the kilt, the traditional Scottish garment that's become a symbol of the country. Whether worn for a special occasion or just for everyday wear, the kilt is a proud and enduring part of Scottish culture. But Scotland is also a land of unique laws and customs, some of which might seem a bit strange to outsiders. From the prohibition on adding alcohol to whiskey to the requirement for men to wear skirts, Scotland has a host of unusual traditions and regulations that make it a truly intriguing place. Now let's dive into some of the most unusual prohibitions and peculiarities that make Scotland a truly interesting place. Before we embark on this unforgettable journey, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to Wanderlust Destinations, and ring the bell to explore the wonders of the world with us. Starting from Prohibition number 18. Say goodbye to your Sunday fish and chips. Now, this might be a bit of a shock, but in Scotland, you'd be hard-pressed to find a fish and chip shop open on a Sunday. A tradition rooted in religious observance, many places still keep the Sabbath day holy, closing their doors and giving their deep fryers a rest. So, if you're craving that quintessential British dish of battered fish and golden chips, better plan to get it any day but Sunday. Number 17. Welcome to the country of islands. Scotland is not just one big landmass as many tend to assume. It is a nation of islands, more than 700 of them, in fact. Each island has its own unique charm and set of rules. For instance, on the Isle of Lewis and Harris, one of the largest islands, you'll find that many businesses close on Sundays, respecting the local Sabbath observance. So, before you set foot on any of these beautiful islands, it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with their individual quirks and customs. Now let's move on to Prohibition number 16. You must try haggis. Scotland's national dish, haggis, is a must-try for any visitor. However, it's not just a suggestion, it almost feels like an unspoken rule. Haggis, for those unfamiliar with it, is a savory pudding containing sheep's heart, liver, and lungs, minced with onion, oatmeal, suet, spices, and salt, traditionally encased in the animal's stomach. Sounds appetizing, doesn't it? Well, don't knock it until you've tried it. The Scots are incredibly proud of this dish, and turning your nose up at it might just be seen as a slight against the nation itself. So, when in Scotland, do as the Scots do and give haggis a go. From food to geography, Scotland is full of surprises, but there's more to discover. So stick around as we continue our fascinating journey through Scotland's unique prohibitions and quirks. You never know what you might learn next. Moving on to Prohibition number 15. Never ask about clans. Now you might think, why would asking about clans be a faux pas? Well, let me tell you, the clan system in Scotland is intricate and deeply rooted in history. While it's a significant part of Scottish heritage, it's not something that every Scot is intimately involved with or knowledgeable about. It's akin to asking an American about their family's original homesteaders, or an English person about their royal lineage. It's not a casual topic of conversation and can come off as a little intrusive. So unless you're at a history conference or a family reunion, it's best to steer clear of this topic. Next up, Prohibition number 14, and this one is a bit eerie, the haunted Edinburgh Castle. Now, Scotland has a rich history filled with tales of bravery, battles, and yes, even ghosts. One such place where the veil between our world and the spectral realm seems thin is the Edinburgh Castle. Over the centuries, countless visitors and staff have reported strange happenings, from sudden chills to apparitions. However, it's not just about the spooks. This prohibition is more about respect for history and culture. The Edinburgh Castle isn't a theme park attraction, it's a historical monument with a deep and complex past. So when you visit, remember to tread lightly and respect the castle and its spectral residents. Finally, prohibition number 13, don't complain about bagpipes. Bagpipes are as Scottish as kilts and haggis. They are deeply ingrained in the country's culture and history, used in everything from traditional ceremonies to modern celebrations. But let's face it, bagpipes aren't everyone's cup of tea. They're loud, they're shrill, and they can be a bit grating if you're not used to them. However, in Scotland, complaining about the bagpipes is seen as disrespectful. It's sort of like going to Italy and complaining about the pasta, or visiting Brazil and moaning about the samba. It just isn't done. So whether you're a fan of the bagpipes or not, when in Scotland, it's best to keep your opinions to yourself. Scotland certainly has its quirks, but that's what makes it so fascinating. Each prohibition, each strange rule is a window into the country's rich history and unique culture. So the next time you find yourself in the land of kilts and bagpipes, remember these prohibitions. Not only will they help you avoid any cultural faux pas, but they'll also enrich your understanding and appreciation of this magnificent country. Next up, prohibition number 12, don't say the Loch Ness Monster is fake. Now, while you might raise an eyebrow at this one, there's a reason behind it. The Loch Ness Monster, affectionately known as Nessie, is a cryptid said to reside in the Loch Ness Lake in the Scottish Highlands. While scientific consensus generally dismisses Nessie as a myth, the creature holds a special place in the hearts of the Scottish people. It's a symbol of mystery, a source of intrigue, and an emblem of the wild natural beauty that Scotland boasts. So whether you're a believer or a skeptic, when you're in Scotland, Nessie is as real as the majestic mountains that cradle Loch Ness. Moving on to prohibition. Number 11, don't compare cities. Scotland is a country rich in history, culture, and diversity, and each city has its own unique charm. From the bustling cosmopolitan city of Glasgow, with its vibrant arts scene, to the historic and picturesque city of Edinburgh, to the oil-rich and modern city of Aberdeen, each city is a world within itself. Comparing them to each other, or worse, to cities in other countries, is considered disrespectful. It's like comparing apples to oranges or haggis to sushi. It just doesn't work. So, when you're in Scotland, appreciate each city for its unique character and charm. And now, prohibition number 10, don't tip too much. Now this might sound counterintuitive, especially if you're from a culture where tipping generously is the norm. But in Scotland, tipping is a bit different. There's no set percentage, and tipping is not always expected. In restaurants, a tip of around 10% is considered polite if you're happy with the service. But in pubs and bars, tipping isn't customary. So, while being generous is commendable, in Scotland it's more about being sensible with your tips. And remember, a heartfelt thank you is often more appreciated than a couple of extra pounds. So there you have it. From keeping the legend of Nessie alive, to appreciating each city's unique allure, to navigating the nuanced etiquette of tipping, these prohibitions offer a glimpse into the rich tapestry that is Scotland. They're not just rules, but reflections of the values, traditions, and quirks that make Scotland so endearing. And just when you thought Scotland couldn't get any more interesting, coming in at prohibition number 9, don't camp randomly. If you're a lover of the great outdoors, you might be tempted to pitch your tent in one of Scotland's breathtaking landscapes and wake up to a stunning sunrise. But hold your horses, or rather, your camping gear. While Scotland's right to roam laws are generous, they don't extend to random camping. The country's natural beauty is a treasure, and it's everyone's responsibility to preserve it. So, if you're planning a camping trip, make sure to use designated camping sites. These sites not only provide the necessary amenities, but also ensure that the natural environment is protected, and you don't accidentally camp on private property. So remember, when in Scotland, camp responsibly. Next up, prohibition number 8, always bring insect repellent. Now, this might sound like a strange rule to have, but if you've ever been to Scotland during the summer, you know it's a necessary one. The Scottish midge is a tiny creature with a big bite, and it loves to come out on warm, damp evenings. These little pests can turn a serene Scottish evening into a swatting marathon. So if you're planning a trip, be sure to pack some insect repellent. It might not be a legal requirement, but it's definitely a sanity-saving one. And finally, prohibition number 7, don't call Scots English. This one might seem obvious, but it's a common mistake made by many visitors. Despite being part of the United Kingdom, Scotland and England are distinct nations with their own unique cultures, histories, and identities. The Scottish people are incredibly proud of their heritage, and rightly so. So when you're in Scotland, remember to respect this distinction. It might seem like a small thing, but it's a big deal to the Scots. If you're unsure about how to refer to the locals, Scots or Scottish people will do just fine. These prohibitions might seem strange or even amusing, but they're part of what makes Scotland so unique. They reflect the country's deep respect for its natural environment, its distinct cultural identity, and its quirky sense of humor. More than that, they're a testament to Scotland's desire to preserve its charm and character. So, the next time you find yourself in this beautiful land, remember these prohibitions. Not only will you avoid any faux pas, but you'll also deepen your understanding and appreciation of this incredible country. As we continue to unravel the peculiarities of Scotland, let's move on to our next set of prohibitions. Let's kick off with prohibition number 6, prohibition on mimicking the Scottish accent. Now this one might seem a bit peculiar, but it's steeped in deep cultural roots. Scotland, with its rich history and vibrant cultural landscape, is quite protective of its unique dialect. And while it may seem fun to put on a Scottish accent, it's considered disrespectful to mimic it, especially if it's done poorly or in jest. It's a form of cultural appropriation that can be offensive, so it's best to refrain from imitating the accent unless you're a trained actor or a linguist. Moving on to prohibition number 5. Prohibition on identifying yourself as Scottish. This one might have you scratching your head, but let's delve into it. Scotland is a country with a strong sense of national identity. If you're not born and raised in Scotland, or don't have Scottish ancestry, it's generally considered inappropriate to claim Scottish identity. It's not about exclusivity, but rather about respecting the deep-seated sense of belonging and heritage that the Scottish people hold dear. So if you're visiting Scotland, feel free to immerse yourself in the culture, enjoy the hospitality, but remember to respect the identity of the locals. And now, let's move on to the 4th prohibition, men wearing skirts. Now, before you jump to conclusions, let's clarify that we're not talking about any skirt. We're talking about the traditional Scottish kilt. The kilt is a symbol of honor, heritage, and national pride in Scotland. It is traditionally worn by men on special occasions and historical ceremonies. But here's the catch. If you're a visitor and don't have any Scottish lineage, you might want to think twice before donning a kilt. It's not strictly forbidden, but it's considered respectful to understand the cultural significance of the kilt before wearing one. These prohibitions may seem a bit strange or even amusing, but they stem from a place of cultural pride and respect. And when we travel, it's not just about seeing new places, tasting different foods, or ticking off items from a bucket list. It's about understanding and respecting the cultures we immerse ourselves in. It's about stepping into a new world, learning about its history, its customs, its quirks, and coming out of it enriched with knowledge and experiences. So, as you plan your trip to Scotland, remember these prohibitions. Not just because they're unique or interesting, but because they offer a glimpse into the heart of Scottish culture, a culture that's as fascinating as it is diverse. As we edge closer to our top 3, Scotland continues to intrigue and amaze. But that's what makes it such a fantastic travel destination, right? The surprises, the discoveries, the chance to delve deep into a culture so different from our own. And with every prohibition, we learn something new. Something that brings us a step closer to understanding the enigmatic charm of Scotland. So stay tuned as we explore the final 3 prohibitions in our next segment. Until then, safe travels and happy exploring. We're down to our final 3 prohibitions, starting with number 3, prohibition on slow driving. Did you know that in Scotland, driving too slowly can be as frowned upon as driving too fast? This is especially the case in rural areas where single-track roads are common. These roads often have passing places to allow vehicles to overtake. So if you're enjoying the scenic landscapes a bit too much and slowing down the traffic behind you, it's considered polite to pull over and let others pass. This isn't just a matter of courtesy, but also a safety measure to prevent accidents caused by frustrated drivers trying to overtake in dangerous spots. In Scotland, the rule of the road is simple. Keep up with the flow of traffic or make way for others. Moving on to number 2, don't buy silly souvenirs. Scotland is a country with a rich history and deep-rooted traditions. It's a place where the past and present intertwine in the most fascinating ways. So, when you're shopping for souvenirs, why settle for cliched trinkets like plastic Loch Ness monsters or cheap tartan scarves? Instead, Opt for authentic Scottish products like locally crafted jewelry, traditional shortbread cookies, or a bottle of fine Scottish whiskey. These souvenirs not only support local businesses, but also give you a true taste of Scottish culture. And now, we've reached our #1 prohibition. No adding alcohol to whiskey. Yes, you heard it right. In Scotland, it's considered almost sacrilegious to add anything more than a splash of water to your whiskey. The Scottish take their whiskey very seriously and believe that adding other alcohol dilutes the flavor and ruins the experience. So if you're visiting a whiskey distillery or enjoying a dram at a local pub, remember to savor the drink in its purest form. After all, whiskey is not just a drink in Scotland, it's a part of their heritage. But don't let these prohibitions intimidate you. They're not strict laws, but more of unwritten rules, cultural quirks that add to the charm of this vibrant country. They give you an insight into the Scottish way of life, their values and their traditions. As travelers, it's our responsibility to respect these customs and immerse ourselves in the local culture. Because that's what travel is all about, isn't it? It's about stepping out of our comfort zones, experiencing new things, and understanding different perspectives. And there we have it, the top 18 prohibitions and peculiarities of Scotland. But before we wrap up, let's do a quick recap. Scotland is a country full of surprises, from its unique traditions to its unusual prohibitions. Let's take a moment to digest all the peculiarities we've unearthed throughout our journey. We started with the prohibition of adding alcohol to whiskey. In Scotland, whiskey is more than just a drink. It's a part of the culture, a tradition that commands respect. So remember, no topping up your dram with anything other than water or ice. We then delved into the world of souvenirs. They say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And in Scotland, this means avoiding kitschy trinkets and instead investing in authentic local crafts. The next prohibition we explored was slow driving. Scotland's breathtaking landscapes may tempt you to meander at a snail's pace, but remember, the roads are shared spaces. Keep up with the flow to keep the peace. Our journey then took us to the land of kilts, men wearing skirts. In Scotland, it's not only common, but a symbol of national pride. But remember, it's a kilt, not a skirt, and it's worn with dignity. We then navigated the tricky waters of Scottish identity. It's important to remember that being Scottish is more than just a nationality, it's a distinct cultural identity. So, refrain from identifying yourself as Scottish, unless you truly are. Our journey then took a linguistic turn as we learned about the prohibition on mimicking the Scottish accent. It's unique, it's charming, but it's also a point of pride, so unless you've perfected the brogue, it's best to stick to your own accent. We also learned that, in Scotland, it's crucial to remember that Scots are not English. It's a common mistake, but one that can ruffle feathers. So respect the distinctiveness of Scottish identity. In the realm of practical advice, we discovered the importance of bringing insect repellent. Scotland's midges are tiny but mighty, so come prepared. We then explored the etiquette of camping. In Scotland, the right to roam is a cherished freedom, but with freedom comes responsibility. So camp responsibly and respect the environment. Next, we delved into the world of tipping. In Scotland, tipping is appreciated but not mandatory, so tip appropriately, but don't overdo it. Our journey also taught us the importance of not comparing cities. Each Scottish city has its unique charm, so it's best to appreciate them for their individual merits. We then dipped our toes into the world of mythical creatures. In Scotland, the Loch Ness Monster is a beloved legend. So even if you're a skeptic, it's best to keep your opinions to yourself. And who can forget the bagpipes? They may not be everyone's cup of tea, but in Scotland, they're a revered instrument. So, refrain from complaining about the bagpipes, embrace the music instead. We also visited the haunted Edinburgh Castle. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the castle's chilling tales add to its allure. We learned not to ask about clans. It's a sensitive topic, steeped in history, so it's best to tread lightly. Our culinary journey introduced us to the unique delicacy of haggis, a must-try for any adventurous foodie. We then explored Scotland as a country of islands, each with its unique charm and beauty. Finally, we ended with the peculiar prohibition of no Sunday fish and chips, a quaint tradition that adds to the charm of Scotland. So, next time you plan a trip to Scotland, remember these prohibitions and peculiarities. After all, they make Scotland the unique and fascinating country it is. Until next time, safe travels.